Lawmakers, Congressman Adam Smith of Washington State. Congressman, thanks for joining us. As you probably heard, the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is telling your fellow Democrats he will relay the concerns he's hearing from members like you directly to President Biden. Is this a moment that could potentially convince the president to step aside?
So I think you're going to see a big shift at the end of this week. One of the things that hasn't been that widely reported is there was a sentiment amongst some that we should get through the NATO summit before we have this conversation. But look, John King said it a few moments ago as well as I can. The data is undeniable. We are in a deep, deep hole. And furthermore, given the president's limitations on the debate stage, on the campaign trail, he's not in a position to dig out of this hole. We have a clear choice. We can either head towards near certain defeat, or we can choose a different path and give ourselves a chance to be successful in November.
But only 8 of the more than 200 House Democrats, as you know, Congressman, have publicly called on the president to step aside. Now, that's a relatively small number, 8 out of more than 200.
Yeah, but I think people are misreading the data. Okay, I think that if you wanted to ask, if you were to do a blind poll, frankly, of Democrats all across the country, because that's what's a part of this story that I don't think is widely reported. I'm hearing from Democrats back home. From the moment I made my statement, I can't even count the emails, the texts, the phone calls from people saying, thank God, somebody had to say something. We have to do something about this. So if you add up all the Democrats, I would conservatively say 80, probably close to 90% of them want to see us have a different candidate. But do they want to say so publicly? That's a different thing. Some people have had trouble doing that. Some have felt like, well, gosh, if he's going to run anyway, what choice do we have? We have a choice. He is the presumptive nominee, not the nominee. And until he is, given the level of a disaster that we're headed towards, we have to speak up. And people are getting there. I just hope they get there fast enough.
The former House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, says President Biden needs to decide whether he's going to stay in the race. But as you know, President Biden has repeatedly in recent days insisted he is staying in the race that he's running. So what's the message she's trying to send here?
Well, I think it would be the absolute height of irresponsibility for President Biden, his advisors, and by the way, I got to say his family, like keep the family out of it, but the family are apparently, a key part of his advisors. It would be the height of irresponsibility to not take seriously their message, shut up and move on. The American people aren't going to move on. The polls show that 80% of the American people think he shouldn't run. You can't overcome that. You can't. It's an utter impossibility. You owe us to consider this. I've never personally been that close to Joe Biden. If nothing in particular, it just hasn't happened. So I don't know his particular thinking. But come on. I mean, you have been a great president. You have been a great leader. You stepped up and saved the country from Donald Trump in 2020. Don't let this be your legacy, that you refused to step down and got him back in the White House. Don't do that.
The Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado warned that Democrats are on track to lose in a landslide in the election, along with losing the House and the Senate if President Biden remains the nominee. Do you agree with him?
Yes. I mean, look, the future, as I like to say, is notoriously hard to predict. I don't like to say absolutes, but as the numbers look right now, the one absolute I will give you, if we had a different nominee, we would have a far greater chance of being successful. No guarantees, but it would be better. And by the way, on the process, it's not that hard. We've got the delegates. The delegates would pick a different candidate. The idea that we don't have the talent in the Democratic Party, that we're in some situation where Joe Biden is the only person in the world that could do this job, is ridiculous. We've got a ton of talent. And furthermore, the American people have been screaming for 2 years, give us a different choice. If the Democratic Party gives them that different choice at this point, the boost we would get from that would be unbelievable. This is a great opportunity, and I'm just doing everything I can to try to make sure that we don't miss it.
Congressman Adam Smith of Washington State, thanks very much for joining us.